The United States District Court for the Northern District of California fell silent as Judge Edward Chen leaned forward, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The wood-paneled courtroom was packed to capacity with journalists and legal observers. Crowding the gallery at the defendant's table, Elon Musk sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable as the 70-year-old federal judge began to respond to his legal team's latest argument. "Mr. Musk," Judge Chen said, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed courtroom, "you've claimed that your tweet about funding secured was merely aspirational communication that no reasonable investor would take literally." The judge paused, shaking his head slightly. "That argument isn't just wrong. It's absurd enough to be laughable, and then to the shock of everyone present." Judge Chen actually laughed, a short, dismissive chuckle that echoed through the silent courtroom. Several journalists exchanged glances, pens poised above notebooks. This was extraordinary and unprecedented. Federal judges rarely display such open derision toward one of the world's richest men in court proceedings. The Tesla CEO's face flushed red as Judge Chen continued, "This court will not permit a CEO of a public company to redefine securities law on a whim. Your wealth and fame offer no special protection here." Mr. Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur's attorneys, shifted uncomfortably in their seats, papers rustling as they whispered urgently to each other. But Musk himself remained motionless, his eyes fixed on Judge Chen, something unidentifiable building behind them. Not just anger, but calculation. What happened next would send shock waves through the legal system, the business world, and social media. Within 24 hours, Elon Musk would make a move so unexpected, so contrary to conventional legal wisdom, that it would leave legal experts speechless and completely transformed the trajectory of the case. Before we reveal what Musk did that shocked everyone in that courtroom and beyond, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more breaking stories and in-depth analysis of high-profile legal battles. Turn on notifications so you never miss our updates on the ongoing developments in this extraordinary case. The clash between Judge Edward Chen and Elon Musk represented a collision of two vastly different worlds and philosophies. Judge Chen, appointed by President Obama in 2011, had built a reputation as a meticulous, by-the-book jurist with little patience for grandstanding or celebrity. At 70 years old, the Harvard Law graduate had spent decades in public service, first as a legal Tiger Aid attorney, then as a magistrate judge. Before his appointment to the federal bench, his courtroom was known for its strict adherence to procedure, civility, and the careful application of established precedent. Judge Chen runs one of the tightest courtrooms in the Northern District, explained legal analyst Sarah Michaels. He's respected for his thoroughness and fairness, but he absolutely will not tolerate attempts to circumvent the legal process or manipulate the court through public pressure. Standing in stark contrast was Elon Musk, the South African-born entrepreneur who had transformed multiple industries through sheer force of will and an almost pathological disregard for conventional boundaries. As CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and now owner of X, formerly Twitter, Musk had cultivated an image as a brilliant maverick who achieved the impossible by refusing top play by established rules. His 126 million social media followers hung on his every white word, and he had built a passionate base of supporters who viewed any criticism of Musk as an attack on innovation itself. Musk has always operated with the conviction that rules are for people who lack the vision to change. The world-noted tech journalist Robert Chen, no relation to the judge. That approach made him the richest man on the planet, but it's precisely the attitude that federal courts are designed to check. When it comes to securities law, the case that brought them into conflict centered on Musk's infamous 2018 tweet claiming he had funding secured to take Tesla private at $420 per share. When the deal never materialized, shareholders sued, claiming billions in losses from market manipulation. The Securities and Exchange Commission had already forced Musk to step down as Tesla chairman and pay a $20 million fine, but the civil case threatened far greater consequences for Judge Chen. The case represented a fundamental test of whether securities laws still applied equally to the ultra-wealthy and influential in the age of social media. His reputation for impartiality and the integrity of the legal system itself were at stake. For Musk, the stakes were equally high, but far more personal. A ruling against him could cost billions in damages, but more importantly, it would validate his critics' portrayal of him as reckless and untrustworthy. A blow to the carefully cultivated image of visionary genius that underpinned his business empire. This isn't just about money for Musk, explained business psychologist Dr. Miranda Jones. It's about his identity. Judge Chen's laughter struck at something much deeper than Musk's wallet. It challenged his self-perception as someone who rewrites the rules, rather than someone who breaks them. As the courtroom tension escalated that day, observers noted a subtle change in Musk's demeanor. The initial flash of anger gave way to something more controlled, more deliberate. Those who knew him recognized the look. It was the same expression he had before announcing plans to land rockets on floating platforms or tunnel beneath Los Angeles. When most people are humiliated, in court they retreat, said a former Tesla executive who requested anonymity. When Elon feels cornered, that's when he's most dangerous. That's when he makes the moves no one sees coming. Meanwhile, Judge Chen continued methodically dismantling the legal arguments presented by Musk's high-priced legal team, seemingly unaware that the billionaire was already formulating a response that would transcend conventional legal strategy and shake the very foundations of how high-profile litigation is conducted in America. The tension in the courtroom ratcheted higher as Judge Chen moved from laughter to a systematic dismantling of Musk's legal position. The judge's tone grew increasingly stern as he addressed Musk's lead attorney, their renowned securities lawyer, William Adamson, counsel. Your argument fails on both legal and logical grounds, Judge Chen stated, removing his glasses for emphasis. Mr. Musk's tweet wasn't vague futurism. It contained a specific price point and the clear statement that funding secured was a present fact, no tan aspiration. Adamson attempted to interject, but Chen raised his hand. The court is not finished. I've reviewed the evidence, thoroughly, including Mr. Musk's subsequent communications. The pattern suggests not a misunderstanding but a deliberate attempt to move markets through misleading statements. Journalists furiously took notes as Chen continued his methodical critique in the gallery. Several Tesla shareholders who had joined the class action lawsuit exchanged satisfied glances. Their lead attorney, Victoria Reynolds, maintained a professional poker face, but the slight upward curve of her lips betrayed her confidence in the direction of the proceedings throughout this judicial offensive. Musk remained uncharacteristically silent occasionally, whispering to his legal team, but otherwise showing remarkable restraint. A man known for impulsive tweets and combative public statements. This calculated composure surprised court observers. I've covered Musk for years, whispered tech reporter Carlos Mendisto, a colleague. I've never seen him this controlled when challenged. Something's different. As the morning session continued, Judge Chen cited multiple precedents that seemingly closed every potential avenue of legal escape for Musk's team. He referenced specific SEC regulations, prior cases involving misleading statements by executives, and the clear market impact of Musk's funding. Secured claim the court takes judicial notice that Tesla stock rose 11% following the defendant's tweet. Chen noted, that represents billions in market movement based on what you're now claiming was casual wordplay. The securities markets cannot function if CEOs can move billions with misleading statements and then claim they were merely being aspirational. When the court recessed for lunch, legal commentators outside the courthouse were nearly unanimous in their assessment. Musk was facing an almost certain defeat that could cost him billions in damages and permanently tarnish his reputation. Judge Chen has effectively closed off every conventional legal defense, explained legal analyst Patricia Torres to a cluster of reporters. If this proceeds along traditional lines, Musk is looking at a potentially catastrophic judgment. What the analysts didn't know was that Musk had no intention of proceeding along traditional lines. During the lunch break, while his legal team huddled in a conference room, reviewing their rapidly diminishing options, Musk sat alone, intensely focused on his phone. He declined, food waved away, concerned assistance, and made a series of brief calls, speaking in clipped, precise sentences. When his chief attorney finally approached with a revised argument strategy, Musk simply shook his head. We're not going to outlawyer a judge who's clearly made up his mind, he said quietly. It's time to change the game entirely. Elon, I strongly advise against whatever you're thinking, Adamson cautioned, recognizing the familiar determination in his client's expression. The conventional approach may not be exciting, but The conventional approach has us losing. William Musk interrupted, and I didn't get where I am by being conventional. When the conventional path leads to failure, he showed his attorney something on his phone screen whose eyes widened in alarm. You can't. Be serious. The lawyer whispered, this would violate every protocol if it violates no laws. Musk countered calmly, and sometimes you need to reframe the problem when the existing framework guarantees defeat. As the bailiff called the court back into session, Musk returned to the defendant's table with a newfound air of calm confidence that puzzled everyone. Present Judge Chen, noticing the shift, studied the billionaire with narrowed eyes as proceedings resumed. No one in that courtroom could have predicted what would unfold in the next 24 hours, a move so unorthodox that it would force a complete reassessment of how high-stakes corporate litigation functions in the age of social media and unprecedented billionaire influence. As the afternoon session began, Judge Chen's stern demeanor suggested he was prepared to continue his methodical dismantling of Musk's legal position. However, before proceedings could resume in earnest, Musk did something that sent shock waves through the courtroom. He rose suddenly to his feet. Your Honor, I respectfully request permission to address the court directly. Musk stated, ignoring the alarmed tugging at his sleeve from his lead attorney. Judge Chen appeared momentarily startled by this breach of protocol. Defendants typically speak only when questioned directly with their attorneys, handling arguments after a brief hesitation. Curiosity seemed to overcome the judge's procedural concerns. This is highly irregular, Mr. Musk, but given the circumstances, I'll allow it proceed, Chen said, leaning forward with undisguised interest. What followed was not the defensive technical argument everyone expected. Instead, Musk adopted a tone of remarkable candor. Your Honor, you laughed at my defense earlier today, and perhaps rightly so. Musk began, his voice steady and clear. I've reflected on that during our recess rather than continue with legal arguments that clearly aren't persuading. This court, I'd like to propose something unprecedented. The courtroom fell completely silent as Musk continued. Within 24 hours, I will personally create a comprehensive restitution fund of $3 billion, significantly more than plaintiffs are seeking, to compensate any investor who can demonstrate genuine financial harm from my funding secured. Tweet, this fund will be independently administered with no strings attached. Gasps and whispers erupted throughout the courtroom. Judge Chen banged his gavel for order, his expression a mixture of surprise and skepticism. Additionally, Musk continued, once silence was restored, I will establish a $2 billion trust for the SEC to enhance securities enforcement technologies and investor education. And finally, I will surrender my own Tesla stock options for the next 3 years, directing them instead to Tesla's factory workers. The plaintiff's attorneys huddled in urgent whispered conversation as Musk delivered his final point. Your Honor, I could spend years fighting this case through appeals, draining judicial resources, and delaying any resolution. Instead, I'm offering immediate, tangible accountability at a scale beyond what any court judgment would likely require. I only ask that in exchange the court allow me to acknowledge my mistake without a formal finding of securities fraud that would trigger automatic consequences for my ability to lead my companies. Judge Chen, visibly processing this extraordinary turn of events, asked, Mr. Musk, are you representing that you have the authority and means to implement these proposals immediately without board approval or other corporate governance procedures? I am, Your Honor, Musk replied without hesitation. The funds will begin transfer by midnight tonight regardless of the court's decision on my proposal. This isn't contingent on acceptance, it's a commitment I'm making regardless. The judge called an immediate recess, instructing the parties to document the proposal in writing before he would consider it. As the courtroom emptied, legal experts outside struggled to process what they just witnessed. Musk has essentially created a third option where conventional wisdom saw only two: fight and likely lose or settle conventionally, explained Harvard law professor Eleanor Burke to assembled reporters. He's offering restitution at a scale that makes the legal battle seem pointless, while avoiding the specific legal finding that would most damage him personally. It's brilliant if unorthodox. When court reconvened 3 hours later, Judge Chen had clearly done his homework. He questioned Musk extensively about the mechanics of the proposed funds, their governance, and the verification process for investor claims. Musk answered with uncharacteristic patience and detail, Having clearly prepared thoroughly during the recess, the plaintiff's attorneys found themselves in an impossible position fighting against such generous immediate compensation for their clients would seem to prioritize legal victories over actual investor welfare. Precisely the perception they couldn't afford. After a final round of clarifications and modifications, Judge Chen delivered. His ruling: this court finds Mr. Musk's proposal satisfies the fundamental aims of securities legislation, investor protection, market integrity, and meaningful accountability, he stated. While the approach is unconventional, the substance exceeds what could reasonably be achieved through traditional remedies as the terms of the agreement were formalized. Legal observers watched in amazement. Musk had transformed a nearly certain defeat into something resembling a triumph. Not by winning the legal argument, but by making it irrelevant through a flanking maneuver of unprecedented scale and boldness. What we just witnessed wasn't legal brilliance in the traditional sense, commented SEC attorney turned commentator James Donovan. It was the application of Musk's business philosophy to the legal arena. When facing likely defeat within the existing rules, changed the game entirely, with a bold move at a scale others can't match. As Musk left the courthouse, the expression on his face wasn't one of victory or relief, but of calculated satisfaction. The man who had been laughed at by a federal judge hours earlier had just rewritten the playbook on corporate legal accountability. The aftermath of Elon Musk's courtroom maneuver spread through legal business and tech circles with the speed of a digital wildfire. Within hours of the court's acceptance of his unprecedented proposal, Art Musk Justice Fund and billionaire accountability were trending worldwide. Video clips of the exchange between Musk and Judge Chen had been viewed over 50 million times across platforms, with legal experts and ordinary citizens alike debating the implications. Musk rewrites legal playbook, declared the Wall Street Journal's banner headline. The next morning, the New York Times opted for the more measured. Unprecedented settlement raises questions about wealth and justice, while tech publications focused on the immediate 4.7% jump in Tesla stock. Following their solution, financial news channels ran continuous coverage with panels of securities attorneys and business ethicists dissecting every angle of what CNBC dubbed the billion-dollar courtroom chess move. Bloomberg terminal subscribers received special analysis on the potential long-term implications for shareholder litigation involving high-profile executives. What Musk effectively demonstrated is that for the ultra-wealthy, traditional legal frameworks can be circumvented not through evasion but through overwhelming constructive action, explained Yale law professor Miranda Cho on CNN. It's neither clearly good nor bad for our legal system. It's simply unprecedented. Social media reactions split predictably along pre-existing lines regarding Musk himself. His supporters hailed the move as further evidence of his genius and commitment to innovative solutions. He literally just solved a legal problem, the way he solves engineering problems, with scale, speed, and out-of-box thinking, tweeted one prominent tech influencer with over 3 million followers. Critics and skeptics saw it differently, arguing that Musk had essentially purchased a more favorable legal outcome. Today, we learned the exact price tag for different justice if you're worth $200 billion, wrote Senator Elizabeth Warren. The question isn't whether the settlement benefits harmed investors, it does, but whether our legal system should have different rules based on wealth. Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley and corporate boardrooms, nationwide executives and their legal teams were hurriedly analyzing whether the Musk maneuver, as it was quickly labeled, could be replicated in other high-stakes litigation law firms. Specializing in corporate defense issued urgent client memos addressing the potential and limitations of the strategy. This approach only works with 3 preconditions, noted a widely circulated analysis from Davis and Harmon LLP. First, extraordinary personal wealth that allows for settlements exceeding likely court judgments. Second, leadership positions where the executive's continued role outweighs monetary considerations. And third, a willingness to accept responsibility in a way that most defendant corporations resist culturally for the actual shareholders who had initiated the lawsuit. The outcome brought mixed emotions. The compensation fund provided faster and more generous restitution than they would likely have received after years of litigation. Yet some expressed a disappointment at being denied the moral victory of a formal fraud finding. The money is certainly welcome and exceeds Our financial expectations, admitted Marcus Reynolds, one of the lead plaintiffs, in an interview with Bloomberg. But there was also a principle at stake about market transparency that feels somewhat sidestepped by this resolution. Judge Edward Chen, who had laughed at Musk's initial legal position only to accept his revolutionary settlement approach, found himself thrust into an unexpected spotlight. Legal blogs and law review articles debated whether he had capitulated to Musk's wealth or pragmatically achieved the best possible outcome for harmed investors. The judge himself maintained strict public silence on the case beyond his official statements, though sources close to him suggested he viewed the outcome as imperfect but superior to the alternatives. Judge Chen is a practical jurist above all else, said a former clerk speaking on condition of anonymity. He recognized that the goal of securities law is investor protection, not punitive measures for their own sake. Within the SEC, urgent meetings were convened to discuss the regulatory implications. The $2 billion enforcement fund Musk had created represented a substantial enhancement of the Commission's resources, but raised complicated questions about private funding of regulatory activities. Interim guidelines were hastily developed for how the Commission would maintain independence while utilizing these new resources. Perhaps most significantly, Musk's approach triggered a broader conversation about justice in an age of unprecedented wealth inequality. Law schools scrambled to organize symposia addressing what Harvard Law Review called plutocratic procedure. When billionaires can reshape, Remedies congressional committees announced hearings on whether new legislation was needed to ensure equal application of the law, regardless of personal wealth. For Musk himself, the aftermath brought both vindication and new challenges. While he had avoided the most damaging potential outcomes, the episode reinforced perceptions of him as someone who played by different rules. His proposed restitution fund was indeed established with remarkable speed, with the first investor payments processed within a week, far faster than any traditional class action settlement distribution at Tesla headquarters. The mood was one of cautious relief executives who had feared, potentially years, of litigation distractions now focused on operational challenges with renewed energy. The surrender of Musk's stock options to factory workers created its own complexity, but was broadly popular among the production staff, whose support was critical to meeting delivery targets. 3 weeks after the courtroom confrontation, Judge Chen and Elon Musk found themselves at the same legal carity dinner in San Francisco, their first encounter since the dramatic resolution. Witnesses reported an initially awkward, but ultimately respectful conversation between the two men. What struck me was how they seemed to reach a kind of mutual understanding, said event chair Patricia Coleman. Two brilliant minds who approached the same problem from completely different frameworks, but ultimately found a resolution neither could have designed. Alone, as the dust settled on this extraordinary legal drama, one thing became clear. The day a federal judge laughed at Elon Musk in court had unexpectedly produced a new chapter in the evolving relationship between extreme wealth, traditional legal structures, and concepts of justice and accountability in the modern age. Thank you for watching our detailed analysis of this groundbreaking legal confrontation between Judge Edward Chen and Elon Musk. If you found this breakdown valuable, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel right now. Turn on notifications to receive our upcoming exclusive interview with one of the key legal experts involved in structuring Musk's unprecedented settlement offer, and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on whether this approach represents a positive innovation or a troubling precedent for our legal